Hi everyone, welcome. Today's video is just to give you a quick walkthrough of assignment number 4, which is the outline for your final paper. So I just want to make sure that you're using this assignment in a way that's valuable to you and valuable to the writing of your final paper. If you think about an outline that you've written before doing a paper where you just sort of list, maybe using Roman numerals or just 1, 2, 3 or a bullet list, you just list the different parts of your paper, the different paragraphs, and then explain a little bit about what you're planning to do in each of those paragraphs. And that's really what I intend for this outline too. It just has a little bit of step-by-step guidance as to the different sections of this paper. Because it's such a large paper, about 8 pages, it's possible that it can be a little overwhelming or intimidating. So having a good outline can really help. First of all, it has over here a thesis reminder, a reminder of how to construct a good thesis for this. It's really important, since this is a problem solution paper, this thesis is going to have your suggestion in it. So what you suggest we do about this issue. And be really clear on who should be doing this thing. Who is the audience that you're writing to? What do you want from the actual people reading your paper? And then it has some examples here color-coded with each of these things. So you'll take your thesis and put it here. You've put a thesis already on your annotated bibliography. You can just copy and paste it here, but then double check against these to make sure you have what you need. So you'll have your thesis here at the top. And then here are some instructions. It's really important that you read the instructions very carefully on this assignment again, so that it has the most value for you. So this is just like a normal outline, except on the left-hand column, it has suggestions of what you might want to include and reminders of what each of these sections should be doing in your paper. So here is an outline of the different sections of the paper, just so you have the overall picture of where we're going. And then here is divided up into each section of the paper. And this is how we're going to get to 8 pages, because there's 6 sections in the paper, and some of these sections are going to be 2 to 3, maybe even 4 pages long. So keep in mind that this is not paragraph 1. Paragraph 2, paragraph 3, it's section. And so within these sections, there could be multiple paragraphs. And in fact, most of these sections will have multiple paragraphs. So what I don't want for you to do is just see these questions here and write an answer to these questions. So for example, on paper section 2, history and causes of the problem. Anytime you're giving a detailed look into a problem, you want to talk in depth about what some people argue are the causes of this issue. I don't want you to just see, okay, how long has this been a problem? This has been a problem since forever. It's not very detailed, it's not very structured, and it's really not what an outline is. Instead, I want you to look at these questions just to remind yourself of some things your audience will be wondering about your problem that this section of the paper probably needs to address. Not all of the questions will apply to your paper, so don't answer all of them. Don't just write answers in the first place, but definitely don't answer all of them, because they're just reminders of what this section should do. Instead, this section, all of the sections will look like an outline. So however you might write an outline anyway. So maybe part 1, you want to talk about social structures that contribute to homelessness. So maybe I want to talk here about how we really don't have support for, there's not enough low-income housing available. There's not enough housing available for people with disabilities, government support for those types of things or whatever, right? And then underneath here, I might want to talk about lack of low-income housing. And I might want to talk about also, lack of support for disability. In other words, this should look like an outline, not just a list of answers to each and every one of these questions, okay? So maybe section 2 here, I'm gonna have a separate paragraph, or each of these could be a paragraph too. Another thing you probably want to be doing at this stage is noting your sources. So maybe there's a source here that you want to remember goes with this, or maybe you even want to put a quotation. Again here, what evidence exists that shows this is really a problem? I don't just want to write statistics about homelessness. that's not going to be very helpful to you as you go, but prove this problem is a problem. We want to say, you know, maybe that is homelessness is more common than people think. So these are going to look like claims, really, because each paragraph of your paper is making a claim and then supporting that claim. So homelessness is more common than people think. And maybe under here, I'm going to have homelessness stats in KC, and then my source, KC star, right? To help me move through the paper. Ideally, this is going to help you write the paper, right? So what I would do as you go to write the paper, okay, I know I need paper section 2 here. Copy this and paste it into your paper doc, and then just start to fill in each of those paragraphs with your actual writing and your actual source integration. So this is what I have in mind. If you're not into Roman numerals and ABC, just do like 1, 2, 3. Point number 1, point number 2, point number 3 that I want to make in each of these sections. Now, another thing I want to bring up is this counterclaim section. So for the most part, your papers are all gonna move in this order, right? You want to talk about the causes, although, you know, causes could come here, you know, these two might be switched around, or causes sometimes can be a really good introduction strategy. Talk about why this or how this became a problem or when this problem began. So some of these may be, you know, you want to do what works for your paper. They may not be in exactly the same order, but generally we go causes, then we go effects, right? That tends to make sense. However, this section here, the counterclaim section, this section will move depending on where your paper, what your paper topic is, and the types of opposing viewpoints or different types of perspectives you have on your topic. So for example, if you're talking about something like homelessness, some people have different explanations for the causes of homelessness. Some people say it's mainly personal responsibility, and some people say it's like a social issue. If your paper is arguing it's about the way our society is set up, you may want to acknowledge the counterclaim of the causes of that. And so if so, you'll do your counterclaim work here after you say what you are arguing the causes are. You want to maybe have a paragraph or two where you say, however, some people disagree that these are the main causes. If so, that would go there. You're welcome to move, you know, you could copy this and paste it here on your own document, and that's awesome. Move this around as it works. You could also just say, you know, here I've got my causes I'm talking about, and then maybe I would just want to label that here's my counterclaim. Some people say the causes are actually blah, blah, blah. Here's the source I have to say that. And however, right? So you can even start writing in like little paragraph forms, and that's going to make your paper much easier to assemble if you already start to get your ideas out here as you go. So that counterclaim section could appear at a different place in the paper, or you may have counterclaims as you go. So some people say that these statistics are questionable. Put your counterclaim in as you go rather than just saving it for some, you know, predetermined templated place later in the paper. Do the counterclaim where it makes sense, as it makes sense, right? It does not have to be, sometimes it doesn't even work best here. The other thing I want to say about counterclaims is to think about counterclaims in a different way than normal. So for example, a lot of people ask me, well, if I'm talking about like Nazism, right? I don't want to say, some people have a good point about that. Like the Nazis, okay, here's what they were right about. So if you're dealing with a truly problematic ideology like racism, sexism, or whatever, you do not need to say, and in fact, you do not want to say, I'm not asking you to say, well, they have a good point about this, right? Women actually are kind of crazy, and here, let me tell you why. You do not do that if you're dealing with a truly problematic ideology. So you don't have to have a counterclaim in that way. But you may have you know, like maybe you're proposing a solution, but some people say that's not really going to work. Like that's not the way that we should deal with this problem. So your counterclaim might be a counterclaim to the solution. Some people might say that's not actually where racism comes from. That's not actually where sexism comes from. It comes from this instead. So you may have a counterclaim to the cause, right? Some people may say, you know, these statistics about the gender gap are problematic and here's why, right? So you may have a counterclaim to even a particular type of source or a particular part of your argument. I am looking for in this final paper, acknowledging varying perspectives. And so those can be varying perspectives on any part of your argument, not necessarily the overall argument, right? So I hope that helps you with specifically this counterclaim section. Identify sections of your paper where you may not have sources yet, because you're going to be continuing to do research. Even if your annotated bibliography is finished, you're going to need more sources above and beyond that. You do not have to go back and add them to your annotated bibliography. Your annotated bibliography is complete when it's complete, but your paper will include more sources. So it can help you identify areas of your paper that may still be concerning for you.